Here we have the week 15 high profit members only trading strategy. The stock that we will be looking at this week is Applied Digital. Stock ticker is APLD. For this stock trade, we will be looking at a minimum price target of $11.20 based on the stock's most recent closing share price. This would mean that we have a potential upside here of roughly 73.4%. Here's a quick look at the price chart and the trading parameters that we will be using. I will be covering this a bit in a way that's a bit more in depth in the technical analysis portion of the video. I do suggest that people take a look at that as well. There will be a link in the description for this video. And then we'll sort of outline some of the recent chart activity. But here are the main parameters here. Buying in at 625. Entry 2 comes in at $5.55, followed by 425. The stop loss goes at $4.10, and as I said, the profit target here will be $11.20. For a little bit of background, Applied Digital Corporation is a technology company which engages in the provision of development and operation of data centers which provide computing power. So this is what we're really dealing with here. They construct and build data centers. The company operates through the following segments: cloud services business, HPC hosting business, data center hosting business. The company was founded in 2001, and its headquarters is in Dallas, Texas. So here's the logo here for Applied Digital. Here's some examples of the product itself, what it is exactly that they build. These are essentially the modern brain, if we can phrase it that way. This is essentially what is going to be replacing human intelligence, at least to a large degree. And the future is obviously very bright for this industry sector. Another example of what these constructions actually look like. This would be the outside of one of these facilities. It's really kind of a big fortress, but really what it is. I mean, we should just really be looking at this as a large brain, because that's exactly what it is. Here's another example of what these look like. I mean, as you can see here, it almost looks like a military type of facility, almost like a fortress. It's really kind of an impressive looking building. And there is a lot of processing power that goes on in these facilities. So here we'll just quickly look at some of the expected trends for the industry as a whole. A lot of these trades that we're doing here do tend to focus on artificial intelligence. I do want to sort of diversify a bit and focus on some more boring stocks as well. I'm just a little bit worried that people won't be interested in some of the more boring stock choices that are out there. So if we're looking at the data center market size, the relative expectation here is for there to be significant growth well into 2034. I mean, it really will continue well beyond there, and these numbers will only continue to increase. It's sort of an exponential type of growth rate, and eventually this goes parabolic. I mean, as you can see here, this does start to turn into a U shape here, which is what parabolic actually means. Here's just a quick slide of some of the different industry sectors that we're using these data centers, these types of facilities. This was the data that was reported at the end of last year. So I really just include this just to show that this is very widespread use. It's not just one simple industry. And in some ways, it's really kind of an indirect way of getting exposure to all of these industries because they're using all of these areas: government, IT and telecom, healthcare, retail, energy. There are many different applications here. And it is sort of an indirect way of actually diversifying a portfolio because you're really sort of gaining access to all of these other markets, through the processing power itself, through that actual brain power. Here's just a quick look at some of the relative, market share. Where are these types of facilities being built and used? And I really just include this slide here just to show that it's a global phenomenon. I mean, this isn't just in one area. This is really every industry sector and every part of the world. So it's about as safe a stock trade as you can get. So next we'll look at some of the underlying fundamentals that are supporting this company specifically. So for some of the key fundamental financial results here, we can see that revenue figures increased by 198% on an annualized basis. This would be the data from the most recent quarter. And on a quarterly basis, quarter over quarter, those numbers also were increasing quite rapidly at almost 39%. Net income is up about 93.5% quarter over quarter. And the earnings per share figure has seen gains of almost 95% as well. So there's a tremendous amount of growth that's being seen in this company specifically, and this is expected to continue for the foreseeable future. So here's a quick look at the price performance in relation to some of the recent share price events. This would be a good time to maybe pause the video and look at some of these factors if you are interested in this type of thing. But I will be going over the chart analysis itself in a more in-depth way. using the technical analysis portion of this video. So looking at the volatility for this stock, this is a bit higher than normal. This does create some additional risk for the stock, but as we'll see in the technical analysis video, most of that volatility has been found in the downside direction. So if we do start to see a bit of a turnaround in share prices, these volatility levels can work both ways. Volatility can be positive or negative. And most of the recent volatility has been negative, and what we're sort of banking on here is the potential for a reversal. So if we do see share prices turn around here, this is actually a factor that could work in our favor. But it is something to keep in mind because there are some risks with this trade because there's a lot of negative momentum. We're sort of buying in at a bit of a lower level, a bit of a dip in share prices. So currently share prices are moving against us, but we're going to be scaling into the position. And as always, we never enter into a full position straight off the bat. We scale into positions. You enter in parts. You enter in small pieces. And then you sort of build the position if the market continues to work in the wrong direction. So this is one factor to note here. It is a much higher than normal volatility level, but this could be a positive if we are coming into a turning point. This company is currently unprofitable, which is the case for most small cap stocks. Many of the stocks that we look at on this channel are actually profitable, but that's only because we're very good at doing this. We are able to find many small cap stocks that are actually making money, but the wider trend, the broader characteristic of a small cap stock, most of those stocks are not profitable. So that on its own is not a huge concern because it's very common. So for this, since the company is not profitable, we will not be looking at the price to earnings ratio. We will be looking at the price to sales ratio as we're valuing this stock. So when we're looking at the historical price to sales ratio, what we can see here is that the stock is trading at very low levels against its own history. In the past, mostly in 2022 and even a bit in 2023, we were seeing that price to sales ratio spike much higher. Currently, it's at 7.3 times forward sales. But as we can see here from the historical perspective, that's a very low level. I mean, this is about as cheap as the stock has ever been based on this valuation metric. So looking at the forward revenue growth, this is not, I should have taken out the word earnings here. This is the revenue figure. So looking at the forward revenue growth, what we're looking at here is that the company far outpaces the data center industry and the broader market. So even within the data center industry, this is a stock that's likely to be, an outperformer, even though we're dealing with a high growth industry. This is one stock that it stands out a bit in terms of its forward potential. So earnings growth here is expected to proceed at right around 35%, which is an extremely high number. So here we're just looking at sort of the revenue and expenses breakdown. I won't go through these factors individually. This would be another slide that you could stop and pause the video if you want to look at these things. But this just sort of gives us an idea of where the revenue comes from and where it actually goes as far as expenses and things like that. So now getting into some of the balance sheet figures, this is the long-term assets versus liability figure. And as we can see, the overall liabilities, this company is not debt-free. But as we can see here, the assets come in at 853.6 million and the liabilities come in below 254 million. So currently the assets far outstrip the liability figure. So here we're looking at the debt to equity ratio. And as I said, this is a company that has debt. Sometimes we're able to find companies that don't have debt. But what we can see in this chart is that this company has a very strong history of maintaining its positive debt to equity ratio. And then recently what we've seen is that the equity part of this equation is really starting to spike and starting to sort of move in an exponential or sort of parabolic type of fashion. So, this is expected to continue moving forward. And I do think that this is another reason that we're sort of at an inflection point with this stock, that it's ready to start moving higher. So here we just have a balance sheet visualization rather than show the balance sheet figures. Those are kind of boring. Here's just sort of a visualization of what all these figures look like. And as we can see here, there is a red box here, which does tell us that there is debt that is found within the company. Comes in right. The total debt figure comes in right around 144 million. But as I said, the physical assets and the equity portion of the balance sheet far outstrips these concerns. So this isn't a company that has a significant debt problem, and this isn't really expected to change for the foreseeable future. So here we have the ownership breakdown. And as we can see, once again, I mean, this is true with most of our stocks, but as we can see, most of the ownership here is institutional. So it's not like we're just getting into, a GameStop or some, kind of crazy stock here. There's a lot of institutional money that is supporting the stock. In common fashion for the stocks that we trade, this is the majority of the ownership. So there is some general public ownership here, but it is outstripped by the institutional ownership. So, in conclusion, Applied Digital builds and operates next generation digital infrastructure with a focus on high performing computing and AI applications, so data centers. The Applied Digital strategy recently gained significant validation through a $160 million private placement, which included a strategic investment from a company called NVIDIA. So that is something I sort of forgot to mention in the other part of these slides here. This company has seen direct investments from NVIDIA as well. So that's obviously a major player to be on your side in this part of the market and in this part of the industry. Applied Digital is expanding its cloud services while developing new facilities, including a 100 megawatt data center purpose-built for AI applications. So that's a massive data center, and that's currently being built. We will be entering into this trade buying in near the $6.40 level, and we will have a price target of $11.20, which gives this trade the potential to capture gains of more than 73% over the next 12 months. So overall, this is a very well-positioned trade in a very well-positioned industry. We've got sort of backing from institutions and NVIDIA as well. So I do think that the stock could be, coming onto the radar for more of the general public here going forward. And I do think that this is an attractive entry point for stock ticker APLD.